Welcome to Profit Talks. I'm Profit. Today is Sunday, March 22nd, 2026. And today we'll continue our commentary on the Iran war. I usually prefer to go through several global events, but this war is different. And it's different because it's impacting every single one of us wherever we live. For now, everyone's talking about oil, gas, diesel, but there are plenty of more products that use oil as their initial input, or gas, from fertilizers to any production that needs sulfur, to plastics. Pretty much every aspect of our economy revolves around oil and gas. So I believe that this is the most consequential event, not only of this year, but pretty much since COVID and Ukraine war. And it's important that everyone understands what we're dealing with. And current discourse online revolves around two distinct groups of people or of experts. One of them I call the plan trusters. They believe that whatever is happening right now is part of some grand strategy, and that pretty soon we'll have a resolution to this conflict. They believe that the US knows what it's doing, and all the confusing messaging that we are hearing are actually also part of the plan to confuse everyone and to essentially introduce a fog of war into the information sphere. The other camp to which probably I belong is experts that understand that what's happening right now is actually not the plan, that there was a plan, but the plan was different. And the very first few days of war showed that it was not a good plan. And that each day that this war is continuing has outsized effects on energy markets, global economy, and every single country around the world. Now, we are increasingly sounding the alarm because we believe that there is no easy exit from this war either. Before the strikes started, the Strait of Hormuz was in a status quo that allowed everyone to pass through, despite knowing that there is a conflict between the West and Iran and Team East. Now the status quo was destroyed. And there's no simple coming back, because if the US exits before the strait is open, it essentially gives Iran this power to control the flow of traffic. So the only other solution is to actually retake the strait from Iran and make Iran unable to control it in the future. What I'm trying to say here is that me and other experts in this camp believe that this situation needs to resolve militarily or diplomatically before we can see the end of this conflict. And there's no simple taco. There's no just Trump going on stage saying, "We won, everything's destroyed, and good job, everyone." Because then Iran can simply continue to block the strait. So I continue my coverage of this Iran war and this commentary here to show you my thinking, my rationale based on what I see on prediction markets, to give you context on the moves on different markets around ceasefire, strait closure, US boots on the ground, resilience of the Iranian regime, everything that is not clearly visible in the media because of the fog of war, but is visible through prices on prediction markets as they aggregate the knowledge of experts on both sides. So the plan trusters and the opposing camp, as well as countless speculators that try to news trade and generally enable price discovery. So today will be very similar to last week. I will go through the markets I watch on a daily basis, the markets I believe are not like investment opportunity, but information opportunity that give us the most important information about how this conflict is going. And traditionally, we will start with ceasefire because, well, that's the most important market. It tells us when we can expect this war to end without necessarily going into the details of how it can end. And here, I'll try to show you the change from last week and explain any moves up or down and what caused them, and what is my thinking about it, and what's my rationale for the future. So here, looking at ceasefire, I think the market that is best to analyze, that has the most volume, as well as has still a lot of time before resolution, is end of April market. And here, well, the situation didn't change much because last week the price of ES was at 35 cents, and today as well the price is at 35 cents. In between, we had a slight bump on Monday after the somewhat bullish messaging from Trump. You can see it here, the price moved to 40, even 41 cents. And then after this message didn't really deliver because we saw constant barrages and escalations, the chances of ceasefire continued to drop throughout the week. And this happened pretty much up until the weekend, because after the markets closed, then once again we saw information that all the military goals are close to being met and the operation may be winding down. But then again, on Saturday we saw Trump's ultimatum, and combining all of those contradicting messages, we ended up at exactly the same pricing as last week. And what it says to us is, for one, that despite 7 days passing, traders still see pretty much the same chance of a ceasefire as they saw last week, which may indicate they're a little bit bullish on these prospects. But on the other hand, what we see is that the market is being propped up by bullish messages from Trump mostly, and each of this message has like a lifetime of 2 days tops, after which traders once again see that this was yet another narrative that is not really connected to the truth. This is especially important because when we look at some of the physical realities on the ground, which is that, for example, US is sending additional military assets to the region, including close to 10,000 Marines. This shows us that despite trying to control not only prediction markets, like mostly not prediction markets, but financial markets, and the messages that we are getting are not exactly aligned with the actions that the administration is taking. So my perspective on these prices is that they're still a bit inflated. They're constantly getting inflated by Trump messaging, and in the absence of this, if we had like not even truth but just uncomfortable silence, I believe the price for a ceasefire, yes, by the end of April, will be much closer to 20 cents rather than 35. And but what is also important to look at when we analyze those markets is the overall trend. And as you can see, at the start of the war, which is March 1st, traders pretty much believe this is another weekend war. So they gave 81% chance that we'll see the end of it by the end of April. And ever since then, these chances are dropping pretty much every day. If we look at the wider context, it's clear that despite some pumps like here, or here around March 17th, we are pretty much going down. And my expectations, as I explained to you, I'm in the group of experts that believe there's no easy solution to this war. So my expectation is that we'll continue to see the drop in ES price here. That will be, of course, interrupted by some bullish narratives here and there. But otherwise, I don't see any catalyst that shows us we are nearing a ceasefire. In fact, some of those military assets that are getting deployed to the region can arrive somewhere around Iran only at the end of April. So if the US is currently sending assets that can arrive in the region by the end of April, then we can expect this war to continue at least a few weeks after they arrive. So that's pretty much it when it comes to ceasefire. Also, another important thing to remember is that 35% chance is actually pretty low, because it means there is 65% chance we won't see a ceasefire. And then if we look at some of the longer dated markets, for example, May 31st, this is 45%. This is still less than 50%, so it's still more likely that we will see the war to continue rather than to end. Only end of June market shows us a somewhat positive indication, but there as well you can see that just before the weekend we were just at 51%, meaning that pretty much the collective of traders between the fundamental traders, the gut traders, the speculators, and the gamblers, what we see is a consensus that it's more likely that we will see this war continue. So if this war is to continue for such a long time, you remember I told you at the beginning that the consequences for the global markets, not only energy markets, but all of them, for all global economies, can be dire. And at least half of these consequences is directly related to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Like the other half is related, obviously, to the damage to the infrastructure that Iran did and can do in the future. For example, the recent damage to the gas facility in Qatar rendered all of its supply unavailable for the next 3 to 5 years. And Qatar was responsible for around 4% of global global gas consumption. And this is the consequence that we will need to live with, whether this war ends tomorrow or never. So this is definitely something to keep in mind, but even a partial opening of the Strait of Hormuz would actually give a lot of relief to the global markets. And when we look at the market directly asking the question whether we will see normalization of traffic by the end of April, we can see that the chances of that fell from around 37, almost 40%, to 30% now. So since last week, we saw a 10 cents drop in the yes price, and currently this is sitting even below the chances of a ceasefire by the end of April. You may remember that I've been mentioning a few times, both on here on YouTube on my videos, as well as on X Spaces with Ivan and Jonathan, that even that due to the rules on this market, that the normalization of traffic is treated as a 7-day moving average crossing a certain threshold. We will need to see a total ceasefire at least a week before the end of April for this market to have a chance to resolve to yes. So I think traders caught up with this reality, and as you can see now, this 30% chance is significantly lower than the chance of ceasefire by the end of April. So in relation to the ceasefire market, I believe this is fairly priced. When I consider my own fair value, I believe this is significantly mispriced. I don't really see the war resolving. I don't really see any escort operation being able to restore full traffic. Like, we can debate, and I'm preparing a thesis on that. I will publish on my Substack in the near future. I hope to publish it this week, but I still need to work on it a bit, and I fully expect to publish it during the next week. And there I will propose scenarios on how US can open the Strait of Hormuz, what amount of traffic can we realistically expect to go back online, and I also try to judge whether this partial return of traffic, even if possible, if it will be enough to avoid the worst crisis. So as it stands here, you also see, so I invite you to listen, to read this thesis. I invite you to comment on it. I think this is one of the most important problems we're currently facing. So it's good to understand if the messages that some kind of escort operation is being prepared are actually worth paying attention to. But turning our eyes back to the market, we can clearly see that it also reacted on the bullish messaging on Friday, but the reaction here was a lot softer than on the ceasefire markets. When it comes to the future, I expect the price of ES here to drop significantly in the next few weeks as more and more people realize what we're actually getting into. And as I also said, for me, it's more important to understand if any meaningful traffic can return, not especially the normal traffic, but rather a meaningful traffic. So here we got some markets on ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz, and this is not exactly optimistic. So as you can see, the movement here is also pretty much correlated with ceasefire as well as normalization of traffic. You can also see a big pump here. I'll get to that in a second. But this is 20 plus ships, and 20 plus ships is somewhere around 20% of the usual daily traffic. The usual daily traffic before the conflict started was around 100 ships a day, a bit lower actually, but 20% is such a nice round number that we can stick with it. So throughout the week, at the beginning, there was even something like 43% chance we will see 20 plus ships going through the strait in any day in March. It even peaked at 47% on Monday. And then we saw a gradual way down, even below 20% for remainder of the week, up until pretty much today on the news that Iran is ready to cooperate with International Maritime Agency. I hope I didn't confuse the name. To bring back the traffic, at least for its friends, so not enemies. But it doesn't really help, as Iran considers its enemies as anyone who is cooperating or aiding the US, having US bases. So pretty much majority of the world that relies on this oil is considered the enemy of Iran. So while we see a small spike here, I wouldn't be so bullish about it. Then moving on, if we see any higher number of ships, even 40 plus, that's pretty much priced as a bond on no. 95% chance we won't see 40 plus ships is almost a sure thing at this point. And then moving on to escort operations, as you see, even though there is a lot of talk about it, and seemingly they're even preparing something, traders are not exactly bullish on it, because even a month and a week from now, so by the end of April, they only see 43% chance of that, which is less than 50. And this is important because it gives you perspective. So this is less likely the more that we'll see any escort, because even one ship being escorted by the US would be enough to resolve this market to yes. The trend here is pretty flat. The market is also pretty young. When it comes to March market, I think it became pretty clear that the US won't be ready to escort anything by the end of the month. Here, I really wouldn't expect any major moves up until we see some clarity around the operations. And this can take anywhere between a week to a few weeks. And by that time, end of April will be pretty close. So while we can experience a bit of volatility on this market, I wouldn't necessarily say uh, those chances here are somewhat mispriced. I think they're fairly well priced. I wouldn't go on either way on this market, but obviously once we get more clarity on the situation, these can move. Also, what I like to look at, because there is a lot of confusion online about who is actually moving through this trade and who is not. This chart here is pretty good at showing you the scale and severity of the crisis. As you can see, pretty much since the 2nd of March, the movement through this trade is usually below 5 ships a day. And these ships are mostly Iranian ships, as well as some wild ships that either had some kind of a deal with IRGC or tried their luck and managed to get through with the transporter off. Yeah, so that's when it comes to trade, and the thing that is most affected in this trade is of course the price of oil. And usually I like to look on this market as it shows trader expectations on where we will see the price of oil. But this market is only related to the price of American oil, so WTI. And this oil is, for one, not very well suited for refineries, for example, in Asia, because US crude is light and sweet. And what refineries in Asia need is something that is medium heavy and sour. And the source of that is predominantly Middle East, as well as Russia, so the Urals crude. So what we've been seeing recently on the oil markets is not that the price is not going up. The price is not going up on the American oil market, and it can also be managed by the administration. But if we look at the global oil price, when we divide between different types of oil that is available, by the way, if you feel that this is something interesting to you, types of oil and the impact of the price, I can also do either a short video or a short piece on what are the different types of oil, where you can find them, and why is it important to differentiate between them. But anyway, as you can see here, that we are starting to see a strong divergence between different types of oil, depending on where they come from and what is their composition. So as you see, the price of American oil, so WTI, rose significantly, but is still below $100 a barrel. Then if you see the Brent, which is priced as the North Sea oil, so it's European oil, it went significantly higher, because we are now above $100 per barrel for a few days now. This is connected to the fact that a significant part of European energy also comes from the Middle East. However, at least for now, most of the deliveries still can happen because of the East-West pipeline in Saudi Arabia. If that were to change in the future, we can expect the Brent price to pretty much join the Asian prices, because those two lines here are Oman crude and Dubai crude. So two of the oil types that are mostly being bought now by Asian countries. And here you can see that this was March 16th, and the price of oil of Dubai crude reached $130, and Oman crude reached over $150 per barrel. These are the prices that pretty much not only force like production closure, but these prices are directly related to the fact that there is simply not enough oil for everyone. And we are seeing it even right now that the poorest countries in Asia are starting to get priced out of the option of getting fuel. And some of the most distant countries, like for example Australia, are already experiencing shortages of some types of fuel, as they got most deliveries from Asia. And if Asia is not exactly willing to export its oil products to Australia, they were pretty much left on their own. And coming back a bit to the shortages, what I'm currently seeing in Southeast Asia, for example, is that in many countries we've seen some kind of measures being implemented to cut the use of energy. So some countries are implementing work from home mandates, others are encouraging people to not use cars as much or electricity. And some countries are mandating that on a given day no one can buy fuel for more than a certain price. I expect that pretty soon we'll see even worse measures that will aim to cut the usage of fuel as reserves of oil and gas will drop and drop and drop. Also, in some of the Asian countries, we can already see the prices of adjacent products going up. For example, in Thailand, we already know that the price of water as well as the price of palm oil will go up. And this is directly related to the fact that, for one, all of these need diesel to be transported. And on the other side, most of these products are using plastic containers, and plastic is made using oil. So, as you can see, we are 3 weeks into the conflict, and we can already see the first effect on prices for the essential goods in the most affected economies. What we will see in the coming weeks is that more and more economies will experience those kind of crises. But also, the most affected countries will implement even stronger measures to counter the effect of the conflict. So, as you can see, the situation is pretty dire when you look at more detailed into the markets. We can essentially say that for now we have two distinct oil markets. For now it's Asia and the rest of the world. Pretty soon we may see three oil markets, which will be Asia, Europe and Africa, and then Americas. And hopefully that will be the stop of it, but at some point we can probably also see a complete disintegration of the global oil market with everyone going for themselves. This will be the worst case scenario. I don't really expect it to see in the near future, but we will continue to monitor the situation. And if I see the risk of energy markets collapsing into different spheres, I will surely let you know. But leaving the commodities aside for now, what is also important for many people, especially American families, but also people who either hope to see a resolution of this conflict or fearing the escalation of this conflict, is the US troops on the ground. And to be honest, what we are seeing here is pretty telling, because with the Marines units coming to the region, we can already see that traders believe there is a fair chance we will see them on the ground somewhere in Iran, be it Karg Island, which was teased, or Iran proper. They give 60% chance it happens by the end of April. I think this timeline is pretty short. Like, I think I don't think the US will be operationally ready to actually deploy troops on the ground by the end of April. But as you can see, the price for the end of year is not that far away from the price of end of April. That basically means that traders believe that we will see US troops on the ground somewhere around end of April or beginning of May, and they see around 70% chance of that. And since last week, this chance increased slightly. It increased from like 66 cents to 70 cents. So even despite all the narrative management, I think it is pretty clear now that the intention is to have US troops on the ground in Iran, either doing some kind of special ops or taking small strips of land, be it around Strait of Hormuz or a Karg Island, where Iran has most of its oil infrastructure for exports. We can expect to see more clarity about the plans in the next 2 weeks, as well as more preparations to put those US troops safely there. And when it comes to Karg Island, this is interesting because Trump has been teasing uh, both striking the Karg Island as well as taking it by force since last week. And here, the market doesn't give a lot of chances to that, but this is mostly connected to the fact that the end of April timeline is very tight. It's what? It's just a month and a week, basically, and it might be not enough to rally enough troops and then send them into the action. But I do hope we'll see longer dated markets. End of June and the end of year would be great to understand the overall risk. There is not much I can tell you from the chart itself. Despite outside of the messages that we saw from Trump, there was nothing really indicating that there is any imminent action on the island. So the price of ES stayed pretty much flat throughout the week. I also recently started to watch again the Kurds. I do think that if the US is really serious about opening the strait without necessarily compromising on its political goals, they will need to create a lot of distraction for the IRGC. So considering that their military abilities are somewhat limited because they have a limited number of launchers, they need to hide them, they have limited numbers of missiles and drones. If there is a risk of ground invasion combined with strikes from Israel, combined with strikes from US, combined maybe with US troops on the ground somewhere, that will divert the focus from attacking the Strait of Hormuz and the infrastructure in the Gulf countries to actually fighting the more imminent threat of the ground troops, be it Kurds, be it US troops, be it Israeli troops, or anyone else who would join the conflict. For now, we had no messages. The market has been mostly flat. I'm watching the Kurds declaring independence market as it is longer dated. As you can see in the rules here, this would need to happen by the end of June. And it's a good proxy to understand if there is any indication that the Kurds have the ability or the will to join the conflict. For now, those hover around 17%, like 16, 17 cents for yes. It's extremely low, and for now at least, the expectation is that if there is any ground operation, it will be US or Israeli troops. This is pretty much understandable. Kurds are a very big wild card because they're universally hated by every other country in the region. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, no one wants to give them land to actually form their own country. They've been fighting them for a very long time, and activating them as a fighting force against Iran would create a serious issue for the region and will risk dragging, for example, Turkey to the conflict as well. So that's it when it comes to Kurds. And the last two markets I like to watch are related more to the Iranian regime. One is the regime fall market, and as you can see here, it's pretty much flat on the week. Here it had a slight bump when Ali Larjani, I hope I pronounced his name correctly, was assassinated by Israeli strikes. But pretty soon it turned out that the regime is still resilient. There's simply another person that can take his place and live on. If you ask me, I believe that 38% chance we'll see Iranian regime fall before 2027 is way too high. I believe those should be closer to 20% at this point, because they showed us that even when most of the senior leadership is eliminated, they can still run the country pretty much without a hiccup. So they had over 50 years in which they entrenched themselves deeply, set up institutions, controlled the economy, and this is bigger than any single person and any single department. This is a big machine that will be working pretty much uninterrupted unless you cause the entire country to fall and cause a civil war. And that's also not something we would like to see, because even during the civil war, there can be factions that still attack the Strait of Hormuz, making travel there extremely risky. We can also see the large outflux of migrants from Iran coming to all different parts of the world. And remember that Iran is a country of 90 million people, and any such crisis there would dwarf anything that we've seen in Europe in relation to Syria crisis or migration from Africa. This will be completely unprecedented in modern times, and it's even difficult to think and internalize the level of crisis that it could create. So lastly, what I watch is the Iran leader by the end of 2026. I still don't understand here why Reza Pahlavi is faring so strong with 14% chance. I think this should be pretty much zero. This guy has no connection to his homeland anymore. He spent most of his life in the US. He doesn't understand the struggles of Iranians that still live in the country. And while he might be popular with the Iranian diaspora, I don't really think Iranians in the country would be happy to accept him as a leader. Additionally, I think if there were any revolution in Iran, they would rather opt to have a democratic government. Like we cannot pretend that most of the people rather prefer to live in a democracy, but there are also some people that like the current regime. But I would say there's close to zero people actually wanting the Shah to come back. But otherwise, what we can see here is that in a week, the chances of Mojtaba Khamenei to remain as supreme leader of Iran by the end of the year rose slightly from just under 30% to pretty much 37% today. I think we should see those like rising slightly when we go into the future, but never really breaching like certainty threshold of probably like 60%, even if we move several months into the conflict without him being eliminated, simply because Israeli network, the Mossad, as well as the US network, the Space Force, and all the assets they have in the region, if they really wanted to, they could probably locate him and try to eliminate him if they believed it can bring some kind of a breakthrough in the conflict. Other than that, I don't really watch that many of other markets. There are a lot of derivatives on different types of events. We can see there's Trump announcing end of military action unilaterally. And as you see, the chances of that are a lot higher than actual ceasefire, but still not that high as many traders realize that Trump probably cannot end this unilaterally. Other than that, there is a Karg Island, there is Reza Pahlavi entering Iran with 32% chance by the end of the year, which is a bit crazy if you ask me. Some strike markets, military action markets, invasion markets, pretty much everything you may want with 227 markets on the conflict. There is also like nuclear deal spillover, so plenty of more nuanced information to watch for if it's something that is interesting to you. But here today, I mostly try to go through the most consequential markets, the markets on the biggest questions that we may have. So the ceasefire, the Strait of Hormuz, the traffic through the strait itself, price of oil, US escort operations, US forces on the ground, Karg Island invasion possibility, and the resilience of the Iranian regime. But I think those give a pretty clear high-level picture of where we are heading. If I were to sum up, what we are seeing here is that versus last week, there is a stronger realization that this conflict will take some time. There's also a stronger realization that the Strait of Hormuz will need to be somehow solved before this whole thing can end. There's also a realization that any escort operation will actually be more difficult than previously expected, and that is increasingly looking like a very prolonged conflict, as chances of US forces on the ground in Iran are extremely high at 70% by the end of the year. So I would say that's it for today. I hope that these materials I am preparing here, as well as on my other outlets, help you understand the severity of the situation, but also help you understand on how you can prepare for what's to come, how you can prepare yourself, your family, your community, because I won't hide it. Every single one of us will feel the consequences of this conflict, even if the US somehow manages to uh, do escort operations and restore at least essential traffic for the strait. Uh, we'll even see the consequences if there is a ceasefire in the next week, and we'll feel them for the next few months. Obviously, then there will be somehow contained, but as everything is pointing to a prolonged conflict, uh, we'll need to get ready for inflation across the board, especially on energy products. We also need to get ready for some shortages, big plastic packaging, gas, fuel shortages, fertilizer shortages, even food shortages if this really goes out of hand because of the fertilizer crisis. Um, I, ca- I cannot tell you exactly what will happen, but everything I'm seeing when I do a deep research tells me that the supply shock resulting from this conflict will be massive on a scale probably never seen in our lives before, even during COVID or Ukraine war. So I don't want to be a panic on here or anything, but I just want to be realistic and show you that whether we like it or not, and whether this conflict ends tomorrow or it ends 6 months from now, economic turmoil is unavoidable at this point, and the question of where it ends is a question of severity of the crisis that is coming. So be vigilant, be ready, and be mindful of everything that you do. And thank you for listening. And I hope to catch you next week. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe to my channel, as well as visit profitnotes.com if you want to see some of my deep dives and deeper rationale on my various theses around global events and this war.